is often portrayed in films as a rugged land filled with sheriffs, saloons, and fast-drawing gunslingers. But beyond the Hollywood glamour lies a far more intricate and captivating history. From desert camels and unsettling tales of cannibalism to an unexpected number of well-known figures, the real Old West was full of surprises. In this video, we'll explore some of the most intriguing truths that shed new light on life in the American frontier. The first quick-draw duel in history. The first documented quick-draw showdown took place in Springfield, Missouri. This infamous clash was between Wild Bill Hickok, already a rising legend, and a man named Davis Tutt. Their feud started over a gambling disagreement, with Tutt attempting to outmaneuver Hickok by supporting other gamblers in an effort to drive him out of town. Despite these attempts, Hickok ended up winning the gambling contest. Things took a darker turn when Tutt demanded $40 over a past horse trade. Although Hickok handed over the money, Tutt insisted he was still owed another $25. When Hickok refused to pay more, Tutt boldly grabbed his pocket watch right off the table. The situation intensified when Tutt later flaunted the stolen watch in the Springfield town square on the morning of July 21st, 1865. Hickok tried to talk sense into him, but Tutt stood his ground. Later that day, just before 6 p.m., Hickok warned Tutt not to cross the square wearing the watch. As Tutt went for his pistol, Hickok reacted instantly. Both men drew, but Hickok's shot proved fatal, striking Tutt directly in the chest. This deadly encounter became the first officially recorded quick-draw duel. It gained national attention, and just 2 years later, a dramatized illustration of the event was featured in Harper's new monthly magazine. The Massacre of the American Bison. In the early 19th century, the vast plains of America were home to as many as 10 to 30 million bison. But by the dawn of the 20th century, that number had fallen catastrophically, with fewer than 1,000 remaining. The American buffalo, or bison, had become victims of relentless and calculated extermination. Many of these animals were killed either directly by the U.S. Army or by hunters hired by the government. Starting in the 1830s, American authorities set out to eliminate the bison population, aiming to cut off a vital resource for Native American tribes. One military colonel even infamously declared, "Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone." Famed frontiersman Buffalo Bill Cody is said to have personally killed around 4,000 bison over a span of just 2 years. By 1889, the species was teetering on the brink, with only 256 known buffalo held in captivity. Thankfully, modern conservation efforts have since helped bring these majestic animals back from near extinction. Many of these animals were killed either directly by the U.S. Army or by hunters hired by the government. Starting in the 1830s, American authorities set out to eliminate the bison population, aiming to cut off a vital resource for Native American tribes. One military colonel even infamously declared, "Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone." Famed frontiersman Buffalo Bill Cody is said to have personally killed around 4,000 bison over a span of just 2 years. By 1889, the species was teetering on the brink, with only 256 known buffalo held in captivity. Thankfully, modern conservation efforts have since helped bring these majestic animals back from near extinction. Today, the bison population has rebounded to an estimated 150,000 to 200,000. If you're hoping to see these majestic animals in their natural environment, Yellowstone National Park remains one of the best places to do so. Dead outlaws were propped up and photographed. During the Wild West era, the exploits of gangs and infamous outlaws were often sensationalized in newspapers across the country and further dramatized in popular books. When these criminals met their end, whether in a blaze of gunfire or otherwise, townspeople often wanted visible proof of their demise. Law enforcement, too, used this as a way to send a stern warning to would-be criminals. With the emergence of photography in the early 19th century, this became easier than ever. Deceased outlaws, or even entire gangs, were posed for a final photograph. These haunting images captured the stark reality of frontier justice and served as a lasting reminder of the risks of an outlaw's life before the bodies were buried. Cowboy meant criminal. In regions like Arizona, the term cowboy wasn't always a compliment. In fact, during the Old West period, it was sometimes synonymous with criminal behavior. In 1881, the San Francisco Examiner ran an editorial describing cowboys as the most reckless class of outlaws in that wild country, arguing they had an even worse reputation than typical robbers. This perception was fueled by the actions of the notorious cowboy gang in Tombstone, whose name itself linked cowboy directly with criminality. Cowboys didn't wear 10-gallon hats. Contrary to Hollywood depictions from the 1920s onward, cowboys in the real Old West didn't wear giant, oversized 10-gallon hats. The typical headgear of the time was the Stetson Boss of the Plains, a flat-brimmed, practical hat designed by John Stetson. He realized the common hats worn on the plains were ineffective against the region's unpredictable weather. Made from fur felt and designed to be lightweight, waterproof, and durable, the Boss of the Plains was also multifunctional. Its crown could hold water for horses, and its wide brim protected wearers from sun and rain. These hats originally sold for $4.50, the equivalent of about $74 today. A quarter of cowboys were black. One of the most overlooked facts about the American West is the significant presence of African American cowboys. Despite the common image of white frontiersmen, it's estimated that roughly 25% of all cowboys were black, a legacy often ignored in mainstream retellings of the Old West. These individuals played key roles in cattle drives, ranching, and frontier defense, shaping the history and culture of the Wild West in vital ways. Contrary to the portrayal in many classic Hollywood westerns, approximately 1 in 4 cowboys during the Old West era was black. When American ranchers moved into regions like Texas, they often brought enslaved individuals with them. These enslaved people were later assigned the responsibility of tending the cattle herds, especially during the Civil War, when their owners went off to fight. After emancipation, many of these formerly enslaved men found new roles as cowhands and became integral to the cattle industry. One of the most remarkable figures from this era was Bass Reeves, who gained fame as the first U.S. Deputy Marshal west of the Mississippi River. Over a distinguished career that spanned more than 3 decades, Reeves arrested over 3,000 criminals, cementing his reputation as one of the most respected lawmen in frontier history. You could see famous gunmen perform for shows. Imagine sitting in a New York City theater and watching Buffalo Bill Cody and Wild Bill Hickok spin campfire tales of frontier life. That's exactly the kind of spectacle audiences experienced. Buffalo Bill created a traveling spectacle called Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show, which featured several colorful cast members, none more famous than Hickok himself. But the show wasn't limited to dramatic storytelling. It also included staged buffalo hunts, reenactments of stagecoach robberies, and other theatrical recreations of frontier events. In 1902, Cody even organized a grand parade, a moment now preserved on film and available through the Library of Congress. Swinging saloon doors were real, not a Hollywood invention. Those iconic swinging saloon doors you see in nearly every Western movie weren't just Hollywood props, they were historically accurate. These batwing-style doors were a common feature in saloons during the Old West era. Their design served a practical function in the cramped and bustling barrooms of frontier towns. Most saloons of the time were modest in size, roughly the dimensions of a modern-day bedroom. The swinging doors allowed for easy entry and exit, helped maintain airflow, and gave a level of privacy, while still signaling that a saloon was open for business. Given the lack of modern amenities like air conditioning and proper ventilation, Old West saloons could quickly become hot, smoky, and overwhelmingly odorous due to the heavy presence of cigars and pipes. The batwing-style swinging doors were designed not only to provide a semblance of privacy, but also to allow for better air circulation. This helped alleviate some of the stagnant atmosphere inside. These doors were also open enough to let the sounds of music, laughter, and clinking glasses spill onto the street, effectively acting as a live advertisement to draw in passing customers. In regions where crime was rampant, saloons often used a double-door system. During open hours, the swinging doors were functional, but after closing, they were secured with solid floor-to-ceiling doors equipped with sturdy locks. This setup was necessary to protect the establishment's valuable inventory, especially its precious whiskey, from theft and vandalism. Women were welcome in saloons, especially in the West. In the 1800s, it was highly uncommon to see women drinking openly in bars, particularly east of the Missouri River, where strict social norms and Puritan values prevailed. However, as you moved westward, those cultural restraints loosened significantly. In frontier towns, it was not unusual to find women mingling freely with men inside saloons. Among them were prostitutes, often referred to as painted ladies, who frequented seedier establishments in search of clientele. Others worked as dance hall girls, entertaining male patrons with music, dancing, and lively conversation. Their presence was not just for amusement. They played a crucial role in boosting the bar's profits by encouraging customers to stay longer and spend more. According to Legends of America, a saloon girl could earn around $10 per week in the 1800s, which would be roughly equivalent to $205 in 1805, come for the time. Prostitution was common, but not the only job for women. In the Wild West, prostitution became a widespread occupation for women, largely due to the overwhelming gender imbalance. With men vastly outnumbering women, sometimes by as much as 25-1, the demand for female companionship soared. This created opportunities for women, particularly single ones, to earn money in ways that weren't available to them elsewhere. Prostitution was one of the most common paths, but it was far from the only option. Many women found work as saloon girls, dance hall performers, or hostesses. These roles didn't necessarily involve sex work. Instead, they focused on entertaining patrons through song, dance, and lively conversation. Typically, these women earned a base salary of around $10 per week and often received commissions for the drinks they encouraged patrons to buy. Their ability to charm and socialize played a significant role in the financial success of the saloons. While some entertainers may have also engaged in prostitution, many strictly remained performers, highlighting the diverse roles women played in the economy of the frontier. Buffalo Bill's stage plays were famously bad. Buffalo Bill Cody's attempts at indoor stage plays were not exactly masterpieces of drama, far from the polished productions of Broadway. These shows often became unintentionally hilarious due to their lack of acting, due to their skill and poor script writing. Cody and his cast, including the legendary Wild Bill Hickok, were not trained performers, and their delivery often left audiences laughing for reasons that had little to do with the plot. Most of these plays revolved around a group of frontier figures sitting around a campfire, swapping exaggerated tales and cracking jokes. The quality was inconsistent at best, and in many cases, the performances bordered on chaotic. In one unforgettable incident, Hickok, perhaps frustrated or drunk, or both, fired his pistol and shot out a stage light in the middle of a performance. While clearly dangerous, the moment cemented the unpredictable nature of these early Western shows and ensured they remained talked about long after the curtain fell. Gun control was real in the Wild West. Despite the Wild West's legendary image of chaos and lawlessness, some frontier towns enforced surprisingly strict gun control laws. Places like Deadwood and Dodge City required visitors to surrender their firearms upon arrival. These weapons were checked in with the local sheriff, who provided a token or receipt for retrieval upon departure. This policy aimed to prevent violence and maintain public order, especially from newcomers who might stir up trouble. However, local residents were generally permitted to keep firearms in their homes for self-defense. This dual approach created a functional balance. Public spaces remained safer and more controlled, while individuals still retained the right to protect themselves in private. It was a practical solution to managing safety in community. The first armed bank robbery didn't happen out west. Although gunslinging bank heists are often linked to the Wild West, the first armed bank robbery in U.S. history occurred in Massachusetts, not the frontier. It took place in 1863 in the town of Malden, well before the heyday of the Western outlaw. Interestingly, America's very first bank robbery happened in 1831, but it involved forged keys rather than firearms. The Malden incident marked the first time guns were used in a bank robbery. Edward Green, a 32-year-old postmaster drowning in debt and struggling with alcoholism, saw the bank as a desperate way out. On December 15th, he visited the Malden bank, left briefly, then returned armed with a gun. Inside, he encountered a 17-year-old boy, the bank president's son, working alone. Green fatally shot the young man and fled with $5,000, a sum worth over $105,000 today. Green's sudden ability to repay debts quickly raised eyebrows, and within a month, he reportedly confessed to the crime. He was hanged in 1866, becoming the first person in the United States to be executed for committing an armed bank robbery. The whiskey was terrible. If you wandered into an Old West saloon expecting a smooth glass of Kentucky bourbon, you'd be sorely disappointed. The whiskey of that era was far from the carefully distilled spirits we know today. With few regulations in place, saloon whiskey was often a rough, hastily mixed concoction that barely resembled the real thing. Bartenders would frequently stretch a small amount of actual whiskey with whatever was on hand. Creek water, grain alcohol, molasses, cider vinegar, fruit juice, and sometimes even axle grease. These bootleg brews earned colorful nicknames like Coffin Varnish, Mountain Howitzer, and Tangle-Leg. That last one referred to booze so potent it could literally make your legs wobble on your way out of the bar. Unsurprisingly, the taste was often closer to paint thinner than any respectable bourbon. Drinking it was more an act of courage or desperation than pleasure. Breakfast on the trail was grueling work. Forget breakfast sandwiches and lattes. Pioneers traveling west had a completely different kind of morning. Life on the trail meant waking up around 4 a.m. to begin the demanding routine of camp life. There was no time to sleep in. The day ahead required feeding people, preparing livestock, breaking camp, and setting out on the trail, all before the sun fully rose. Coffee and bacon were staples of the frontier breakfast. Women would build a fire, roast green coffee beans in a skillet, grind them by hand, and then brew the coffee over the flames. This laborious process took significantly more time than any modern coffee maker, but it provided essential fuel for the day. Alongside the coffee, thick slabs of bacon were fried up in the same skillet, filling the air with the scent of grease and smoke. Cornmeal gruel might make an appearance if supplies allowed, but bacon remained the mainstay, reliable, salty, and calorie-dense. Pioneers ate it 2 or even 3 times a day. Thanks to its heavy curing and smoking, it could theoretically last the whole journey, though in practice, spoilage and scarcity were constant concerns. Mining towns were more expensive than living in Silicon Valley today. When the California gold rush kicked off in 1848, it triggered a massive influx of hopeful prospectors and entrepreneurs, resulting in entire towns springing up almost overnight. But with the sudden boom came skyrocketing prices. Demand for food, tools, and other basic goods far outpaced supply, leading to rampant price gouging. In fact, living in some California mining towns during the 1850s was, by comparison, more expensive than residing in Silicon Valley today. Consider this. In 1851, a single egg could cost as much as $3, which, adjusted for inflation, equates to about $105 today. A pound of butter ran around $20, roughly $700 now. Gold pans that had once sold for a mere 20 cents were now priced at $8, or $280 in today's money. Shovels fetched a staggering $36, which would be around $1,159 by modern standards. The harsh reality? Most miners were lucky to dig up even $10 to $15 worth of gold per day. With prices that high, even basic survival in a mining town could feel financially crippling. Frontier folks embraced poop-powered cooking. One of the biggest challenges pioneers faced on the Great Plains was the complete absence of trees. No trees meant no firewood, and without firewood, cooking and staying warm became a serious concern. The solution? Buffalo dung. While it might not sound appealing, dried buffalo droppings became the go-to fuel source for many frontier families. Nicknamed meadow pies or prairie chips, buffalo dung was more useful than you'd expect. Once dried in the hot prairie sun, it burned cleanly, producing a quick and surprisingly odorless fire. It provided a reliable source of heat for boiling water, cooking food, or warming a tent. The key was finding thoroughly sun-dried chips. Wet or fresh dung was smoky, messy, and useless. In the treeless wilderness of the plains, this unusual but plentiful fuel source helped countless pioneers survive harsh, firewood-starved conditions. The California gold rush wasn't the first in America. Long before fortune seekers poured into California, the first glint of gold fever struck on the East Coast. In 1799, in Cabarrus County, North Carolina, a young boy named Conrad Reed stumbled upon a shiny, yellow rock while fishing near his family's farm. Unaware of its value, the family used it as a doorstop for several years, until a local jeweler identified it as gold. That single nugget launched what became the nation's first gold rush, as the Reeds and their neighbors began scouring their land for more treasure. Not long after, in 1828, another gold discovery rocked the southeastern United States, this time in Georgia. While the exact individual who uncovered it remains unknown, word of gold in the rivers and creeks of northern Georgia spread like wildfire. White County became one of several hotspots, drawing in thousands of eager prospectors and marking the second major gold rush in U.S. history. These earlier rushes helped prime the nation for what would become the most iconic gold rush of all, California. California's gold boom changed everything. In January 1848, James Wilson Marshall was overseeing construction of a sawmill for John Sutter along the American River when he noticed shiny flakes glinting in the water. Marshall's discovery at Sutter's mill would soon ignite a global frenzy. Although met with skepticism at first, by May of that year, a San Francisco storekeeper silenced doubters by placing bottles of gold dust in his shop window. That was all it took. By 1849, tens of thousands were flooding into the region, earning the nickname 49ers, each hoping to strike it rich. The California Gold Rush dramatically altered the course of American history. Entire towns sprang up, seemingly overnight, while established cities like San Francisco ballooned in size. People came not only from across the U.S., but also from China, Latin America, and Europe. Although most didn't find riches, many stayed. If you enjoyed this dusty trail through history, don't forget to saddle up and hit that like button. It helps and hard truths of the American frontier. Got a favorite Wild West fact or a tall tale of your own? Drop it in the comments. We're always around the campfire waiting to hear another story. Until next time, keep your boots dirty, your coffee strong, and your revolvers historically accurate. This has been your channel name, where history ain't just dusty, it's downright dangerous.